What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to share with you 3 recent returns and profile each of the individuals that I got back and talk about their playing careers. As you saw from the opening, this is a San Antonio Spurs themed video. One of the things that I really haven't done in a while is a basketball video, but one of the things I've never really shared was I am a huge San Antonio Spurs fan. I am so excited for this upcoming season that the Spurs are going to be playing in with the number 1 pick Victor. But this past year, the Spurs celebrated their 50th anniversary in existence. And the Spurs were actually the Dallas Chaparrals before they were the San Antonio Spurs. And 2 of the individuals I'm going to show in this video today are really not known as San Antonio Spurs. They were very successful elsewhere in their career. But one of the Spurs that I'm going to share with you today was one of the greatest Spurs ever to play. And I got him back through the mail, and I was so excited when I got this return back in the mail. So we're going to save him for last, and we're going to start with the first one. The first one is a return from California, and it is former San Antonio Spur David Greenwood on 1, 2, 3, and 4. David's more well known for being a Chicago Bull, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. So let me tell you about David Greenwood and his career in basketball. David Greenwood was a power forward center, more a power forward than a center in the NBA, that grew up in Los Angeles, California, and attended UCLA during his collegiate 1975 to 79 seasons. And I just realized I have his UCLA card and I didn't send it to him. That was a boneheaded move on my part. Well, anyways, moving on from there, after being one of the top collegiate players in 1979, David Greenwood is actually famous for an infamous event. If you recall, in 1979, there was this guy named Earvin Magic Johnson that was going to be a pick, either the first overall pick that came to a coin flip. Well, the Los Angeles Lakers won that coin flip, and guess who they picked? Magic Johnson. Well, if things would have went the other way and the Chicago Bulls would have got Magic Johnson, which obviously Magic's from the Midwest, he's a lot closer to Chicago than he is Los Angeles, where he grew up in Michigan. And naturally, the Los Angeles Lakers probably would have selected David Greenwood if they would have had the second overall pick, and Magic went to the Bulls. Well, instead, the Bulls got the number 2 pick, and guess what? They selected David Greenwood out of Los Angeles, and Greenwood moved, across the nation to the Midwest, and he joined a team, that featured Orlando Woodridge and Reggie Theus. And actually, Greenwood, his very first year, was a very, very solid power forward for the Bulls. He appeared in all 82 games for the Bulls. He averaged 16.3 points that season and 9.4 rebounds a game. So, I mean, not bad for a rookie. Well, like I said, there's this other rookie in LA that kind of overshadowed him a little bit. Well, from 1979-80 all the way through 1985, the 84-85 season, Greenwood would be a solid force for the Chicago Bulls. As a matter of fact, he appeared in 464 games for the Bulls during that stretch, averaging 12 points a game and almost 9 rebounds a game. Well, after that 84-85 season, the San Antonio Spurs decided to trade their aging superstar George Gervin, and in return they received David Greenwood. Well, Greenwood appeared in just 68 games for the Spurs that first year, but he put up some solid numbers with almost 8 points a game. But it was not, the numbers that he did in Chicago. Well, Greenwood would spend through the 1988-89 season with the San Antonio Spurs. And after the 88-89 season with the Spurs decided to trade him to the Denver Nuggets. Well, this actually worked out really nice for him because at this point, Greenwood hadn't played for a winter. And he played just 29 games for the Nuggets in 88-89, and this is at the point where he's more of a role player coming off the bench. But the following year in 1989-90, the Detroit Pistons gave him a call, and they placed him on their team. Well, as a backup player on the Pistons in 89-90, he appeared in 37 games and would be part of the Detroit Pistons championship team that went on to win the whole thing. Well, after the 89-90 season, the Pistons did not re-sign him, and he decided to re-sign with the San Antonio Spurs. So in his second stint with the Spurs, he was brought on board to help then upcoming rookie David Robinson. He wasn't a rookie in 89-90, Robinson, but second-year player David Robinson, kind of being a mentor to him, coming off the bench, playing power forward. And, David did his job in that 90-91 season at 33 years old to the best of his abilities. And, he only averaged about 3 points a game, 4 points a game that year, but his veteran leadership was what he was brought back to San Antonio for. Well, that was basically it. After the 90-91 season, David would retire from the NBA. In total, he would spend 6 seasons with the Bulls, 5 seasons with the Spurs, that 1 season with the Detroit Pistons, and that 1 year with Denver. For his entire career, Greenwood averaged 10.2 points per game and about 8 rebounds a game for his career. So, not quite Magic Johnson numbers, but like I said, Greenwood is, more famous for being the second selection in the draft behind Irvin Magic Johnson. So, very happy to add the 5-time San Antonio Spur to my collection, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, this next one is also a well-known player, but you're not going to really remember him as a Spur. You're most likely going to remember him from his other team that he played for. And what team am I talking about other than the Houston Rockets themselves? Vernon Maxwell, Mad Max, on 2, 3, and 4. So we got a half and half here. We have half Spurs and half Rockets, and I know if you're a Rockets or a Spurs fan, you'd cringe at this because you can't be both. You have to be one or the other. That's kind of how it works when it comes to the rivalry between those two teams. But Mad Max was a very good player for a long time, most notably for the Rockets, but he did spend some time in San Antonio as a key person in their success. So let me tell you about Vernon Mad Maxwell and his career in basketball. So Vernon Maxwell was a shooting guard. He played a little point guard, but more shooting guard in his career. That played for 13 seasons in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So his career spanned 3 decades in the NBA. He was selected by the Denver Nuggets in the second round of the 1988 draft after having a successful career in both high school and college in Florida. While in high school in Gainesville, Florida, Maxwell was named Mr. Basketball for the state of Florida, and he also was an all-state defensive back in football. He got a full-ride scholarship playing for the University of Florida, and the 6'4" guard averaged 20.2 points as a senior and still holds 15 Florida Gators team records. After 4 years at the Gators, he was the all-time leading scorer and the number 2 scorer in the Southeastern Conference behind Pete Maravich. He averaged more than 20 points in both his junior and senior season. However, those records were erased due to some recruitment violation type of things, which probably in today's NCAA are completely legal. So, despite being the all-time scorer in the history of that school, they erased his records. As I mentioned, he was drafted by the Denver Nuggets, but on that same day, the Nuggets didn't actually utilize him, and they traded him to the San Antonio Spurs for a second-round pick the next year. Well, his rookie season in 88-89, he appeared in 79 of the 81 games for the Spurs, but he just started in 36 of those. However, he did average 11.7 points per game. He would start the year in 89-90 and that's, I believe, his rookie card right there. And this is also the set that has the David Robinson rookie card in there. So both Vernon Maxwell was a second-year player on David Robinson's first year, despite appearing in 49 games for the Spurs, they decided to trade him for cash to the Houston Rockets. So they just outright sold him to the Rockets. Well, he would finish up the year appearing in 79 games for the Rockets in 89-90. But the following year, in 90-91, with the Rockets, he would be a full-time starter with the team, starting 79 of 82 games for them that season. Well, in his first full year as a starter, he would average 17 points per game. And Vernon, I called him Max, and Vernon would be the shooting guard for the Houston Rockets all the way through the 1994-95 season. Well, if you know what happened in 1993 and through 1995 in Houston, Vernon Maxwell was part of those two championship teams with Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, after acquiring Clyde Drexler from Portland, Maxwell was kind of competing with Clyde to glide that second championship run in Houston, and the Rockets decided to waive Vernon Maxwell, and he signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Vernon would spend the next year with Philadelphia, and he actually had a pretty decent season, appearing in 75 games for Philadelphia and averaging 16.2 points per game. Well, despite this, the 76ers decided to release him from his contract after that 95-96 season, and he would return to the San Antonio Spurs. Well, to say the least, Vernon played more of a role player role at this point in his career. He was 31 years old, and the Spurs signed him for that one season, in that 96-97 season. And with San Antonio, he averaged 12.9 points, basically coming off the bench for them that year. But after that 96-97 season, the Spurs would let him go, and then he would kind of bounce around the league thereafter. He would spend the 97-98 season with Orlando and Charlotte. He would then spend the 98-99 season with Sacramento. He would then spend 99-2000 with Seattle. He would then spend 2000 to 2001 with the Philadelphia 76ers again and the Dallas Mavericks, where he would finally finish out his career. Well, he played the most seasons with the Houston Rockets, 6 seasons with them, appearing in 402 games, and he played 3 seasons with the San Antonio Spurs, appearing in 200 games. Overall, for his career, Mad Max averaged 12.8 points per game. Again, like I mentioned, he played 13 seasons over the span of 3 decades. So, a very good player in both high school, college, and the pros. Well, that'd be 3, not both. But he was successful at every level, and I'm very happy to add Vernon Maxwell to my collection, add him to the Spurs and the Rockets collection, and we'll move on to the final San Antonio Spur. Alright, like I said at the beginning of this video, this one I'm really excited because I am such a huge San Antonio Spurs fan. And this is a return from the original Spur. And I'm not talking about George Gervin. I'm talking about before George Gervin. And that is James Silas, all-star shooting guard, on 2 of his single cards and 2 ABA. Well, one's an ABA leaders and one's a team leader card. Now, unfortunately, you can see he was a team leader on that Spurs card twice, but he only signed it once. And he gave me just kind of like a shortened signature as opposed to his long signature here. So you get what you get, I guess, on the smaller cards. But I know Swen Nader is a pretty good signer through the mail, and if I ever can get a chance to see George Gervin, I would love for him to complete that card. But we'll see. Not sure about Matt Calvin and Dave Robish. I think both of them are pretty good signers through the mail, so I might be sending that one out to them. But before I move on and profile James, I do want to say I did give him a donation to sign these. James, for a long time, was not a very easy, accessible autographer. I stuck a few bucks in the mail to him. I want to say 5 or 10, somewhere in that neighborhood, and that's what magic happened. He signed for me after a donation to him, and I don't have a problem giving him some money because this is one of those individuals that didn't make a whole lot of money during his ABA and NBA career. So let me tell you about James Silas and why I'm so excited to have his autograph. James Silas played point guard and shooting guard. He was kind of a little bit of both. He got the nickname Captain Late, and I actually in my letter asked him to inscribe the top one Captain Late, but I guess he didn't want to do that. And he was also called the late Mr. Silas, but he also got the nickname Snake. And the reason that he got the nickname Captain Late and the late Mr. Silas was because in the fourth quarter, this guy would turn it up a notch and he would take over a game. Okay? And going back to his collegiate career, he played his collegiate basketball at Stephen F. Austin. In his senior year, Silas led Stephen F. Austin to a 29-1 record, averaging 30.7 points per game. Silas was drafted in the 5th round of the NBA draft by the Houston Rockets. However, he was waived by the Rockets before the 72-73 season, and the owner, or the coach of the Dallas Chaparrals, which would move the next year to San Antonio, took notice of Silas and they signed him to a contract. Following the 72-73 season, he made the all-rookie team his first year with Dallas. They were sold and they moved to San Antonio, becoming the San Antonio Spurs. So, with the Spurs, Silas was the guy. Silas was named the ABA All-Star team in 75 and 76, as well as the All-ABA second team in 75, and the All-ABA first team in 75 as well. Silas's best year statistic-wise was easily in 76, when he averaged 23.8 a game, 5.4 assists, and 4 rebounds. Silas wound up playing for the Spurs for 8 seasons, 9 if you count Dallas, including 5 years in the NBA after the team moved from the ABA to the NBA. Following the 1981 season, after his long time with the Spurs, he was then traded to the Cleveland Cavs, where he spent 1 year before he retired. One of the most exceptional things about Silas's career, a couple things, is one, when he retired, he was in the top 10 in free throw percentage. So this guy never missed a free throw, in other words. He played 685 games in his career, mostly with San Antonio and Dallas, the Chaparrals. Averaged 16.1 points per game, 3 rebounds a game, which is pretty good for a 6'1" guy, and 3.8 assists a game with 1 steal a game. So over his career, he had over 2,000 rebounds. That's pretty unheard of for a guy that's only 6'1" and is a guard. Another most notable thing, why I love James Silas, on February 28th, 1984, James Silas's number 13, just 3 years after he retired, became the first ever retired San Antonio Spurs number. There's only 10 numbers as of me shooting this video that are retired. James Silas was number 1. So thank you very much, Captain Late. I appreciate you signing for me. I will treasure these autographs. Like I said, I'm going to probably send this one out to Swin Nader, and I might send the other ones out to those guys as well. But these 2 single ones, which you signed, your full signature on, I'm going to treasure forever in my collection. I also want to thank former Spur Vernon Maxwell, 2-time Spur, and we'll put these Rockets cards on here too, even though I'm more of a Spurs fan than I am a Rockets fan. But I do respect the Houston Rockets for what they did, winning those championships back in the 90s, crushing the San Antonio Spurs in the wake of doing so. I also want to thank David Greenwood, who was a heck of a player when he played in the NBA. One of those underrated guys you just don't remember. It's just because he happened to be in that same draft as that Magic Johnson guy. So I hope you guys learned a little bit about some great San Antonio Spurs. I look forward to your comments below. It's been a while since I've done basketball, so if you want to see more of those, let me know. And as always, happy collecting.